Small businesses do gut feel when if they just took a second, stepped back, and then did some calls. You're a small business and you did that.
Yeah.
You got on the phone.
This is the holy grail of decisions, what's going to make people buy more, right? And that's probably one of the, as like a video marketer myself, I know that's one of the absolute hardest things to get across well. If I look, I don't know how I would measure the data to figure out what's actually getting my sales up, because I can name a few things, but I've never recorded as data, so this is all gut feel for me.
Yeah.
You know, one of the big things that happened for me was I made this explainer video for a customer, and I did this massive little case study where I talked about how I made every little decision I did. One thing I noticed, and this is only based on people I talked to on the phone, I never recorded as data, is that it did not help in any way with like my direct to client services. So working directly with a business owner to create a video for their company.
Yeah.
They did not read that case study, or they did not care how I made that video. But every marketing agency, they read that, they had to talk to me.
Yeah.
And there wasn't really a way for me to, like if there was a way for me to then track that person and, you know, record them visiting that page and reading that page and going across, great. But I don't actually have that as a luxury, because a lot of times they just straight up call me because they heard about me through some word of mouth.
Well, you should approach it probably more like an academic researcher. So, you know, what they'll probably do is look for a set of people, like customers or whatever, and then do some phone interviews and ask some sort of general questions and try to get the idea, and maybe open questions. Get them to tell you what they think. And once you've discussed that with about, you know, 10, 20 people, you start to pick up some trends or some topics, key topics that are, you know, driving these things. For example, case study, no case study. Marketing agencies, yes, case study, good. End consumer, case study, no good. Maybe if you then take that data and turn that into like a survey, like a yes, no kind of thing, or rate on a scale of 1 to 5. Then once you've taken that, you know, these one-to-one interviews, you can turn that into a survey and then pump that out to a couple hundred people. Then you'll start to see, all right, 90% of people prefer this, 10, 20% prefer that. So you might then weight your decisions on time and investment based on that. So that's creating empirical, or as close to empirical data as possible, because you're using a control group, you're doing an experiment.
Yeah. And
then you're surfacing out some proof that can demonstrate whether or not you should spend another 40 minutes, an hour, or a month, or $10,000, $100,000 investing in that area of your business. So not all data can be done through, you know, like transaction data or CRM information. Some of it you need to basically go and extract it from the brains of your customers, the people you're actually dealing with. That could be on multiple fronts. It could be with your suppliers, your partners, your employees. You know, imagine you want to know, all right, well, I think it's really good that we go and do one particular activity for the Christmas party, as an example. But then maybe some employee perspective, you might go to a I don't know, like a steakhouse, and then you discover that 90% of your employees are vegetarian. So maybe you need to think about a different sort of activity.
Yeah, that's clear.
But you're not going to pick that up in a data point.
No, exactly.
In a standard data point, yeah. Small businesses do gut feel when if they just took a second, stepped back, and then did some calls. You're a small business and you did that.
Yeah.
You got on the phone. You didn't go to the second part where you did a survey. There's free survey software like SurveyMonkey. There is, you know, Zoho Survey, which you've already got access to. So you would then be able to do just a simple, like a 10 questioner, and then pump it out to your email database, which could be your entire database, could be 100, 200, 300 people. You don't have to have 100,000 customers to warrant doing that.
Yeah, well, it's actually a really interesting way I got about doing that. So you're right, it's important for small business. The way I was able to determine what kind of person was going to what part of my website was actually paid ad campaigns. So I'd paid ad campaigns, or email campaigns was the other one. What I ended up doing was I sent out a bunch of first point of contacts to, basically there was a time where I did it for just marketing companies and a time where I did it just for customers. And I was using Zoho Sales IQ to track people coming in and out, and Page Sense as well, so I could track the recordings. And what happened was, because I was clearly marketing to two different subcategories at a very specific time frame, I could assume all, or at least the majority of the website visits was from that category of client. And that's how I was able to determine where they were visiting.
Yeah.
So that actually might be a good way of doing data sets, especially as a small business, what you say, because it's sometimes hard to get a lot of data points to get accurate data. So using paid marketing.
In the small business, you probably need to experiment the most.
Yeah.
So I know we're talking about the interplay between big and small business, but if small businesses think like big businesses and start to act a little bit like them, they might actually very, very quickly become the big business. And because they're smaller, they can adapt faster. They can, go by feel a little bit. They can make quick decisions. They don't have to go through 5 layers of management. So yeah, a small business can very much benefit. And there's a lot of free tools or cheap tools out there that can allow those things.
Yeah, no, that's right. So especially Hotjar, that's the one I first used, and that's a good place to start. Okay, so that's pretty clear. So we're going into, what data is actually important, and we basically stated that you need to know what you're trying to find out, what objectives, what decisions you're trying to make to figure out what data is important for that decision.
Yeah.
You need to have that in place before you go and start recording the data, or you're just going to get a lot of data and not use much of it at all, which is, I think, probably one of the biggest things we hear from data analysts and people who set up these systems for people all the time is people have no objective.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the biggest thing people get wrong, right? They just don't know what objective they're trying to solve.
And they get a fire hose of notifications and reports that they don't know what they're doing with. And so they go, oh, I've got this many website visitors. And that's more of an outcome rather than the input. Or, so what? Like if you did an ad and you just had all these spammy people just click a link just because it was there, or it kind of caught them in a search filter rather than than that being what they actually wanted to find. And so that is a waste of your marketing dollars. It's a waste of your time. And then there's no reason behind it. It's like, yeah, I got more traffic to the website. So what? It may not be the right traffic and they're never going to buy. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's very clear.